Gavin Newsom has a brand new podcast because, he's only the governor of California. He's got a lot of time on his hands. It's not like there's anything going on in that state, right? Oh, geez, I got all this time on my hands while the state burns and we're in debt and we're giving benefits to illegal aliens and we keep bringing them here to commit crimes. I think I'll start a podcast. So his first guest is Charlie Kirk. I know it's not right to judge them because there might be a lot of editing. It might be out of context. But we're going to judge. Let's take a look at this clip that's making the rounds.
So you right now should come out and be like, you know what? The young man who's about to win the state championship in the long jump in female sports, that shouldn't happen.
Well, I think it's an issue of fairness. I completely agree with you on that. So that's easy to call out. There's also a humility and a grace that these poor people are more likely to commit suicide, have anxiety and depression. People talk down to vulnerable communities is an issue that I have a hard time with.
He's an asshole. I didn't bleep myself. He's a jerk. I don't like Governor Hair Gel. He's duplicitous. He's smarmy. He will lie to your face and get away with it. And sadly, look at the body language here, by the way. Whose podcast is this exactly? Who's the host and who's the guest? That was definitely Charlie Kirk being the aggressor. And look at the crossed legs and the sort of retreat into his seat that the host of the show is displaying here. If you look at his language there, he's saying, it's an issue of fairness, but we should be able to hold that in both hands along with the grace that's required. Do you notice what he did there? These poor people are more likely to commit suicide and have anxiety and depression. Well, those are three different things: suicide, anxiety, and depression. Now, it is true that a person who has been told or convinced by society, by school teachers, counselors, doctors, psychotherapists, that they were born in the wrong body and God made a mistake at birth and they're living a lie, I'm thinking they're gonna have some anxiety and depression. I think that's sort of baked in the cake there, isn't it? Of course, obviously. But the suicide numbers have already been debunked. So he's just lying there. And I wish Charlie had jumped in there, but I understand you're a guest on a show and you don't want to seem like a jerk off aggressor, although it's certainly the kind of thing that Gavin Newsom would do. But with his very elegant flowing hands, he just sort of did what we call the Newsom pivot, which is, you're right, I completely agree with you. But, people are going to commit suicide, so we can't do the logical real thing. What's really going on here? Did Gavin Newsom really just go in the polar opposite of his party? A party who, by the way, just voted in Congress against the idea of protecting women's sports, down the line party vote in the House and in the Senate. No, of course, that's not what he's doing. How do I know? Well, because I listened to this guy, Gavin Newsom. It was just 2 years ago, an interview with the local Fox station in Los Angeles, where he affirmed his commitment to allowing men compete in women's sports in his state of California.
There was a new poll that came out that showed that 70% of people don't think it's fair for people to be in sports without the gender they're assigned to at birth. How does the state handle that? What do you
never
do
has so much attention been, so few people, never has more attention ever been placed. I'm not, in my 30, 40 years of sort of deeper consciousness around social issues, I've never seen more attention paid to so few people. I just asked my staff a simple question. I said, NC2A, I imagine there's...
Yeah, sorry, I got to jump in here because I am so sick of hearing this lie. We just heard this the other day. Even John Fetterman said this, I think, when he voted against protecting women's sports. It affects so few people. We're only talking about 3 or 4 people. That is such a lie, and it drives me insane. Not just because, first of all, I think the United Nations put out that it was close to 900 titles, trophies, and medals that have been won by transgender athletes competing as women who were actually born as men. So that's a lot more than just a few people. But also, play this out for a second. Let's say it's just one person. Let's say it's just one biological male playing on a women's volleyball team where they have shorter nets and they can spike the ball with more ferocity and at a higher and steeper angle because they can jump higher and the net is lower than if they play boys volleyball. Because ask yourself this: why does boys volleyball have a higher net than girls volleyball? Maybe there's a physical difference between the two. So if you allow somebody that has those physical differences play against those who don't have those physical differences, you've got a problem. But let's say it's just one. In the entire state of California, it's just one. And that spiked ball ends up giving traumatic brain injury to a little girl, just like it did to Peyton McNabb in the state of North Carolina. Why are you okay with that? Oh, well, it's only one girl who has traumatic brain injury, so we got to let this thing keep going. Okay, that's one aspect of this. But then there's another aspect of this. Let's say it's a track star, as we saw in Connecticut. Let's say it's a swimmer, like we saw with Leah Thomas. Oh, it's only one person. It's only one person. Okay, but if that one person wins the gold medal, if that one person gets the scholarship, if that one person competes and every single track meet or swim meet they win, it's affecting all those other girls who are competing. So this doesn't just affect, it's so few people. No, it is literally every single girl and young woman who competes, who have to compete against that one person. See, they try to do this pivot and say, well, there's so few transgender athletes that it's not. No, one transgender athlete in a competition affects every other female. So it's not one person being affected. It's every young girl who competes in that sport. So it's just a lie. It's a blatant lie that for some reason reporters, even good reporters, like I believe it's Alex Michelson in Fox 11 in Los Angeles, didn't jump on. But so don't accept that lie whenever you hear it from your friends on your Facebook page or something, because it is a lie. Okay, go ahead, Gavin. Keep lying to us. We love it when you lie because you're so good at it.
Hundreds, maybe thousands of trans athletes. There must be, for all the amount of attention and scrutiny that's being provided. Turns out there are about 520,000 NC2A athletes, 226 or so thousand women. There's a handful, 35 or so. Mm-hmm. I mean, put it in perspective. I get why people are fearful. I get why people, and I intimately understand it. I've got 4 young kids that are deeply involved in sports. I understand that. Again, you approach it with some humility and sensitivity, with some humanity. These kids are more likely than anything else to commit suicide. Mm-hmm. There, for the grace of God, go any of us as caregivers or parents. I don't like the weaponization, that the assault on the community. And so it's finding some common ground. In the state of California in 2013, a decade ago, well before I got here, established a framework, a foundation in terms of the fundamental rights for trans women, trans men to participate in sports. Biden administration is trying to find some flexibility, and that's been a rulemaking process that's wildly controversial in trying to approximate the answer to your question. I don't have the answer to the question. No one does. NC2A is trying to work through this, but we have to come at it with some humility and humanity. And I repeat that because it's not there. It's not present in our current public discussion.
All right. So the humility and humanity that Gavin Newsom demands that you absorb while discussing this issue only extends to what he calls a trans man and a trans woman. By the way, if there's no distinction and no difference and they should all compete in the same way, then why do you have to call them trans man and trans woman? Clearly there's a difference. Clearly there's something different about them because you're using that modifier trans. Thank you. So you've already conceded the point, number one. But number two, all of your compassion, all of your empathy, all of this sympathy that you're supposed to hold in the grace of your heart on this issue only goes in that direction. What about the girls? What about the girls who are injured? What about the girls who want to compete on a fair playing field? Now, yes, with Charlie Kirk, he conceded that. But here's my problem with Charlie's presentation. It has to do with the fairness, and that is a big deal. But there's something else going on here. What about that 14-year-old girl, my 14-year-old daughter, who now will see male genitalia up close and personal right in front of her for the first time against her consent? Why is Gavin Newsom okay with a man's penis being exposed to a young 14-year-old girl against that girl's will? What is wrong with you? And where is your sympathy? Where is your grace? Where is your empathy for my 14-year-old daughter? That's what this is about. And that's what they refuse to acknowledge. All right, more in this incredibly smarmy episode of Gavin Newsom's brand new podcast. And listen, I'm going to talk about extend grace. I'm going to give Charlie the benefit of the doubt. And I'm guessing they're only releasing clips right now to sort of get people to watch this or listen to it. But my God, Newsom is the slimiest of slimes. And he is sociopathic in his ability to lie to your face and make you grateful that he's lying to you. And I think here's another example of it.
Trying to put my son to bed. He's like, what time? What time's Charlie going to be here? Dude, you're in school tomorrow. He's 13.
Did you let him take off school?
No, he didn't. Of course not. The point is,
you canceled school for like 2 years. Once one day.
You are making a damn dent.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. I don't buy anything here, and I wish Charlie weren't so thrilled with the fact that Gavin Newsom claims his son is a big fan. And this whole idea, oh, why isn't he here then? Well, he's got to go to school. He can't take the day off. Yeah, this is the guy who forced kids out of school for 2 years during the pandemic. Although, by the way, not his kids, because his kids went to private school in Sacramento. So his kids continue to get a good education. But everyone else, all the rest of you plebes, the people that we don't allow school choice so that you can put your own kid into a private school. No. You'll go ahead and do your lessons at a laptop at the kitchen table while the union teacher gets to, go sun himself in Cabo or something while teaching you. But now my kid can't come to the podcast. Here's an extended version of that clip. And I'm going to do my best not to interject, but come on, Charlie, I got to hope that Charlie Kirk, who is a friend and a colleague, I hope that he pushed back more to Gavin Newsom than what we're seeing so far in these teaser clips.
I think people need to understand your success, your influence. You're like, ask me anything.
Anything.
Challenge me.
Challenge me, whatever. I've been at this for 13 years. It's been a wild movement, really accelerated once President Trump kind of came on the scene. Right around 2021, we had a goal. Could we move the youth vote 10 points over 10 years? Because our whole hypothesis was this demographic is disproportionately to the Democrat side. We believe Democrats were taking them for granted. We think that your side had no message whatsoever and an ideological monopoly. We saw some of the fault lines there. To President Trump's credit, he also harmonized with the strategy by going on podcasting and using TikTok. Yeah, I mean, we did it in 4 years, not 10, large in part thanks to you guys. And your side basically not acknowledging it was happening was the crisis that young people were experiencing. It's the first time in America's history that a 30-year-old is going to have it worse off than their parent. It's a breakdown of the social compact. They are the most alcohol addicted, most drug addicted, most suicidal, most depressed, most medicated generation in history. The message that was largely being fed to a lot of young people was lower your expectations. You're not going to have the same American dream. And we saw this as an opportunity, especially with young men. And this got ridiculed a lot by the press that, they're creating this manosphere thing. They're half of the population necessary for any society and civilization to succeed, which is have both strong men and strong women. We went about that in a very unique and creative way. The president became a cultural phenomenon where no matter what you threw at this guy, he rose above it. And you would even have to give him credit. I mean, facing 700 years in federal prison, states tried to kick him off the ballot. California did have a faction that tried to kick him off the ballot, right? Despite all of that, of course, being shot, and that was kind of the crescendo of all of it, he kind of became this figure of an American comeback story. So he personified what a lot of young people, especially young men, wanted back in their politics, which was an ascendant rebel attitude against these institutions that have failed them so miserably.
Why is he normalizing Gavin Newsom? And even worse, why is he explaining to Gavin Newsom and the rest of the Democrats exactly what is working with young male voters right now? Why? Let them figure it out on their own. I don't quite get it. I mean, if Newsom asked me to be on his podcast, which he's not, I would say the first 5 answers to every question would be, yeah, sure. I mean, we could talk about that, but could I ask you a question? Don't you have a job? Isn't education like at its lowest nadir in this state right now? What are you doing about getting all of the criminal vagrants off of the streets so that when my child goes to the neighborhood park, they don't have to dodge hypodermic needles and piles of human feces? I mean, listen, I think it's great that you're embracing new media. Maybe you're trying to set up your next gig, but I think you've got a good state of California pension in store for you. Could you go to work right now instead of having a podcast? It's kind of weird. And by the way, now we're going to be competing. This is on iHeartRadio. What the hell is happening right now? You've got a full-time job. I think things in California still need some repairers, don't they? That's just odd to me. Again, I'm not trying to be critical. God bless Charlie. I mean, he's built an empire, but is this why you built that empire? I hope Charlie secured an agreement from Newsom that he goes on his show so that he can ask him questions about everything that's broken in California and about all the bad decisions that this guy made, instead of just basically, here's what Gavin Newsom can say now. Gavin Newsom can say, hey, I'm willing to talk to the other side. I'm willing to open up my hands. I'm willing to reach out and learn from people who I disagree with. Look at me. I'm not the crazy left-wing megalomaniac that everybody says that I am, but he is. Because don't look at this. Look at how he's run the state. This whole thing about transgender sports. Oh, I think you're right. It is a question of fairness. Okay, do something. You're the freaking governor of California. Don't just sit on a podcast and say, oh, you're right. It's not fair for those girls who were competing. Meanwhile, it continues to happen. Gee, maybe you twist some arms in the California legislature and say, fix this problem. It's unfair. Maybe you use your executive powers as governor of California to actually defund the schools who don't. And by the way, federal government has just issued executive orders through the White House. Why is your state going to fight that in the court system, pal? This is all total bull. 100%. This is Gavin Newsom setting up his run for president. And I, for the life of me, don't understand why Charlie's helping him.
A lot of folks were talking about that Carville article where he talked about
roll over and play dead.
In essence, he
Well,
said that. I think it was a
said, though, right?
strategic retreat, right? That we need to come back immediately. No BS. Thought about you, who's just 24/7 flooding the zone, owning this space every day, getting a convert, continuing the momentum, coming out of this damn election. We're going to stand back and watch you run circles around us for 6 months.
Yeah, I hope you guys retreat.
What do you do?
Please.
But what do you do? Seriously, Charlie Kirk, give us some advice.
Get better ideas, Governor.
That is actually the bottom line here. It's like, what's your secret sauce here? Boy, you guys are making a dent. You're doing this with youth voters. The only answer is you guys are wrong. You've got horrible, destructive ideas, and it doesn't matter how you package it up. It has nothing to do with you wearing neutral tones on this set and using your hands like you're a ballet dancer and having exquisite hair gel in your hairdo. You can do that, but it doesn't matter. Ultimately, you have evil, destructive ideas that go against human nature and the basic freedoms and liberties that every American is born with and yearning to express. And ultimately, as long as you keep promoting your socialist, destructive, evil, anti-human ideas, and we keep celebrating freedom, we're gonna win. The rest is just window dressing and packaging and a delivery system. But okay, Gavin. Okay, Charlie. You guys do your thing.